Welcome to Pen and Perspective, where the story always knows more than it's telling. Every word is intentional. Every silence holds a truth. Let's get into it. Some mornings, freedom feels too loud. Walter moves through the house quieter than he ever did before prison, like he's still trying not to wake the men on the tier. The kids don't say it, but they watch him the way you watch somebody learning how to breathe again. And me? I've been holding my breath for 2 years. I guess we both learning how to live in a body that still remembers being afraid. The sunlight comes in warm through the kitchen blinds. I should feel peace here. I fought for peace. I fought for this family, this house, this life, climbing through black excellence with the weight of everybody's expectations on my back. Do everything right. Be everything strong. Hold everything together, even when the ground shifts under you without warning. But after everything that's happened, peace don't land the same. It shakes before it settles. I keep thinking back to the beginning, back before orange jumpsuits and court dates and hospital bracelets. Back to when I met Walter, a man trying to change the Block 1 redevelopment plan at a time, running a business that already had momentum but not enough hands. He was juggling city calls, contractor issues, financing meetings, community demands, burning himself out thinking passion was the same thing as capacity. He didn't need saving, he needed structure. And I loved him enough to build it. I stepped into the business the way some people step into destiny, slow, careful, and then all at once. My degree helped, sure, but it was my instincts that carried us. I knew how to steady him. I knew how to make the numbers breathe. I knew how to take his 10 ideas and turn them into one strategy. And he trusted me, really trusted me with his dream the way he trusted nobody else. We built everything side by side after that. Kids, property, reputation, a rhythm that worked, which is why him being arrested felt like losing the roof off my life. Not just the man, but the protection, the partnership, the future. People don't talk about that part. They talk about the trial, the sentence, the visits, the prayers. But they never talk about a woman becoming two parents overnight, two business owners overnight, two emotional anchors overnight. They never talk about walking into Ralph's for groceries and seeing people whisper over produce, trying to pretend they aren't staring at the woman whose husband is now that case. And they definitely don't talk about how a shift in the friend group feels like a shift in the whole world when you've been leaning on them for air. Because I knew from the beginning something wasn't right. About Taylor's tight smiles, about Brian's shaking voice the day he tried to joke about Walter's arrest, about Dante's over-explaining, about the way Kiara looked at me with that sharp, steady truth in her eyes, letting me know I wasn't imagining any of it. I felt every lie in my bones. I just didn't have the capacity to go after them. I had mouths to feed, books to balance, a business to keep from collapsing, and kids who needed routines so they wouldn't collapse with the rest of our life. Intuition don't disappear when you're overwhelmed. It just waits. And now, with Walter home, with life trying to settle again, with the dust still swirling behind us, I can feel that intuition waking back up because surviving the last 2 years didn't soften me. It sharpened me. And somewhere deep inside, I know this story didn't end just because my husband walked through our front door again. Not with the way Kiara moves now. Not with the way the friend group looks at each other instead of speaking. Not with the way Walter's eyes go dark when he thinks nobody's watching. Something is coming. And this time, I'm not too overwhelmed to look at it head on. Update 1. The call came at 1:13 a.m., that hour where the house is silent and even the refrigerator hum feels too loud. I had fallen asleep on the couch mid-email, wrapped in Walter's old throw blanket, the TV casting a soft blue light across the living room, Unknown number, unknown voice, unmistakable tone. Ma'am, your husband's been in an accident. He's at Cedars-Sinai. You should come now. The world didn't spin or shatter. It just tilted. My first thought wasn't even fear. It was the kids. They were asleep upstairs, limbs tangled in blankets, dreaming the way children should dream, fully and without intrusion. There was no universe where I woke them for this. I called our neighbor, Miss Tasha, a retired nurse who truly meant it whenever she said, "If you ever need me, call." She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep but instantly focused. "I'm coming right now," she said, before I could even finish the sentence. By the time she knocked, I had thrown on clothes, grabbed my bag, and scribbled a note for the kids in case they woke before I returned. "I'm at the hospital checking on Dad. You're safe. I love you." "Mom." Tasha gave me a firm squeeze on the shoulder, grounding, steady, and told me to go. Sandra texted the group chat as she drove to Cedars on autopilot, praying the whole way, bargaining under her breath like she used to as a teenager. "Lord, I don't ask for much. Just let him be awake. Let me see his eyes." The minute she stepped into the hospital hallway, the smell of antiseptic and that cold, recycled air told her this was real. This wasn't a nightmare she could blink away. A nurse led her to Walter's room, and there he was, bruised, hooked up to monitors, breathing, thank God. But when he turned his head toward her, there was confusion in his eyes, fear sitting right under the surface. She kissed his forehead and grabbed his hand with both of hers, like she could anchor him if she held tight enough. "They keep asking about alcohol," he murmured, wincing a little when he adjusted his shoulders. "Saying my blood alcohol level was elevated. But babe, I haven't had a drink all day. You know that. I left the office with Tay. I went straight to the car." Sandra nodded. "I know. You don't drink like that. None of this makes sense." They spoke quietly for a few minutes, her checking for any other injuries, him trying to replay the night in his mind, both of them grounding themselves in each other. Those minutes mattered. They were the last moments anything felt normal. The first knock came, and then the friend group trickled in, one by one. Ayla first, eyes already glossing with protective rage, then Kiara, Michelle, Brian, Dante hovering in the doorway. Concern filled the room, but Sandra could feel the fractures beneath it. Everyone gathered around the bed, offering comfort, disbelief, fragments of questions, and they were all saying the same thing in different tones. "Walter doesn't drink like that. Something isn't adding up." They had barely begun processing it together when two uniformed officers stepped into the room. "We're here to place you under arrest." The air snapped. Sandra's grip tightened around Walter's hand. Ayla straightened like a fuse had been lit. Every head in the room jerked toward the officers. Terrell stepped forward instantly, controlled, sharp, not loud, but unmistakably in charge. "On what grounds?" he asked. One of the officers gave him a once-over and rolled his eyes. "And you are?" Terrell didn't blink. "I'm his lawyer." The officers exchanged a look, irritated but boxed in. Procedure wasn't stopping. They just had to say it politely. "Everyone except counsel needs to step out," the older officer said. "Now." Sandra leaned down, kissed Walter's cheek, whispered, "I'm right outside," because she didn't know what else to offer besides her presence. She backed out of the room with the others as the door closed behind them and the muffled sound of rights being read bled into the hallway. In the hall, the group clustered, shock, fear, anger, disbelief, all mixing into something sour in the air. But Sandra couldn't focus on their reactions. Her eyes were on the door, waiting for it to open again. That's when T. Greaves, who had been quiet against the wall the entire time, finally spoke, just low enough for only Sandra to hear as he stepped closer. Yo, he murmured. You good? Kids straight? She nodded because she had to nod, not because anything in her felt steady. T. Greaves nodded once in return, slow, weighted, an unspoken, I got you behind his eyes, then fell back into silence. Minutes later, Terrell emerged, face set with that mix of lawyer calm and friend worry. They're transporting him downtown, he said. Follow me. We'll meet him there. So Sandra grabbed her bag, squared her shoulders, and followed Terrell out of Cedars. The wife who came in panicked, leaving as the woman now forced to carry clarity, strength, and storm all at once. By the time Sandra and Terrell left the police station, it was creeping up on sunrise. Her nerves were buzzing, her palms shaking, but her mind was already moving through the checklist because that was who she was now. A woman who didn't have the luxury of falling apart, not when the ground was still shifting. She drove home in silence, headlights washing the curve of their quiet block, thinking about the kids. Tasha said they had slept through the whole night. Thank God. Sandra walked into the house to find the living room lamp on low. Tasha curled up on the couch with a blanket, the house still and soft. They whispered in the hallway while Sandra shook off her shoes. Everything okay? Tasha asked. No, Sandra said honestly, but it will be. I just need a minute. Tasha hugged her, squeezed her hand, and let herself out. The kids were still asleep, thank God again, so Sandra just stood there in the hallway, looking at the crack of light under their rooms, bracing herself for what morning would demand of her. When the kids woke up, she sat them at the kitchen table, made oatmeal they barely touched, and told them the truth in a way children could hold without breaking. Daddy got hurt last night, she said softly, and the police think he did something he didn't do. We're going to help him, and he's going to be okay. But things might feel different for a while. Her daughter's eyes filled. Her son frowned in confusion. Both walked into her arms without hesitation. Walter had always been the steady one, the big, gentle anchor who made pancakes shaped like their initials. Now she had to be the whole shoreline. By 8:30, she texted Walter's administrative assistant, Layla, hold everything steady today. I gotta take care of home, but I'll have a PR team in place by the morning. Layla texted back immediately. Say less. We got it. Sandra exhaled. It was Walter's business, but it was her work just as much. They had built the rhythm together. She had learned the contracts, the city ordinances, the inspector's quirks, the math behind redevelopment budgets, not because she wanted a title, but because she wanted her husband to breathe. The company would not fracture on her watch, not even now. By noon, Ayla was at her door with groceries, iced coffee, and the same fierce protective energy she'd had since she and Walter were kids. Ayla hugged her long and hard. I'm not letting you do this alone. Tell me everything. Sandra told her the timeline, and Ayla paced the kitchen like she was ready to go fight the city herself. I knew something was off, Ayla muttered. Walt doesn't drink like that. Somebody lying, and I'm telling you right now, we're getting him home. Ayla made lunch for the kids. She cleaned the counters without asking. She sat with Sandra on the couch when her hands finally started shaking. Walter's blood, Sandra's anchor. Later that afternoon, Kiara stopped by. Not for long, just 20 minutes, but long enough for Sandra to notice that look again. The same one from the hospital, the sharp, assessing, too calm look that didn't belong to someone simply worried about a friend. Something isn't right, Kiara murmured. I'm watching. And you're not crazy. Sandra didn't ask for details. She didn't have the emotional room to, but hearing someone else name the tension she'd been swallowing made something in her unclench. By the time the office doors opened the next morning, I had already decided one thing. The business was not allowed to bleed. Walter could be in custody. My nervous system could be fried as shit. But the company would not look unsure. I got dressed like I always do, neutral colors, confidence. I wasn't about to be wearing grief. By 9:02 a.m., I was on the first call. Developers, city partners, two people who had already read whatever headline was floating around and were pretending they hadn't. I let them talk. That's the first rule. People reveal what they're really asking if you don't rush to answer. Someone said, "We just want to make sure leadership is still focused." Another asked, "Should we be concerned about continuity?" "Our operations are steady," I said calmly. "Nothing has changed structurally. Any media inquiries are being handled and all project timelines remain intact." I said it like it was boring, because boring is safe. By mid-morning, I was at my desk, calendar stacked back to back. I met with a contractor who tried to test the moment. He leaned back too casually and said, "Crazy week, huh?" I smiled politely. "Is there a question about the bid?" He cleared his throat and opened his folder. That's how I handled it all day. When someone asked something I could answer, I did, cleanly, without defensiveness. When someone drifted toward speculation, I moved them gently but firmly toward the team. Names, email addresses, process. You'll want to send that to PR. No cracks. At noon, I signed off on payroll early. I approved a zoning variance request. I sat in on a call about a mixed-use redevelopment site and corrected a projection error before anyone else caught it. The numbers still made sense. That mattered more than feelings. What people don't understand is that panic doesn't show up as tears in business. It shows up as delays, vague answers, and missed follow-ups. I decided to give them none of that. By the end of the week, the office felt steadier than it should have. People took their cues from me whether they realized it or not. If I didn't flinch, they didn't either. I knew then the company would survive intact, profitable. What no spreadsheet could show was the cost, because it takes a special kind of focus to hold other people's confidence while your own life is actively destabilizing, and I did it anyway. After Taylor was up and able to move around, she came by with a bag of to-go food and the kind of tight, jittery smile that didn't match anything happening around them. Sandra thanked her, grateful for the gesture, but she felt that heat behind Taylor's eyes, that restless energy, that tension. Taylor shifted her purse strap and said quietly, "Just don't push too deep into all this, San. You'll burn out trying to understand things that don't have clean answers. Some stuff, it'll swallow you if you let it." Sandra froze. It wasn't just the words. It was the way Taylor said them, like someone trying to redirect attention, not comfort a cousin. And for the first time since all of this began, Sandra felt the quiet, unnerving possibility settle into her bones. Taylor wasn't just surviving something. She might be hiding in it. This time the call came just after 3 in the morning. I almost let ring out. Then I see the label, inmate. My chest tightens before my brain catches up. I fumble for the phone and answer on the third ring. "Hello? This is Sandra." There's that pause, that heavy silence that always comes before a prison call connects. Then I hear a breath and a voice, distorted maybe. I can't make it out. It tells me not to trust everybody in my friend group. Everything in me freezes. The voice isn't loud, it's almost gentle. "Who is this?" I whisper. Nothing. Another breath. Then the line goes dead. No goodbye, no click, just gone. A second later, the automated voice kicks in. This call was placed from an inmate facility. My stomach drops, because here's the part I can't make sense of. It didn't sound exactly like Walter, but it didn't not sound like him either. It sounded like someone who knew my name too well. I don't sleep after that. I sit up in bed with my phone in my lap, staring at the call log like it might change if I keep looking. 0314 a.m. Inmate call 0009. 9 seconds. 9 seconds that feel like something opening under my feet. By 7 that morning, I've already called the prison 3 times. Every answer is the same. Ma'am, there were no outgoing calls from Mr. Marshall's unit at that time. Ma'am, his phone privileges don't start until after breakfast head count. Ma'am, if it was a glitch in the system, all we can do is note it. Note it. Like this is a typo instead of a warning. By noon, I'm sitting at the kitchen table with a mug I haven't touched. The kids are at school. The house is too quiet. I call Terrell next. He answers on the first ring. You good? He asks. No, I say. I'm really not. I tell him everything. He doesn't interrupt. The silence on his end tells me he's already thinking, already weighing what this means. You sure it wasn't him? He asks. He said my name like he knew me, I tell him. But it was off, you know? Walter's voice gets higher when he's nervous, not lower, and he would have said more. He would have explained himself. It didn't feel like my husband. You call the prison? 3 times, I say. They say there's no record, no call, nothing. Save the voicemail, Terrell says. Forward it to me. Don't delete anything. You think it's real? I ask, even though I already know the answer. I think somebody went through a lot of trouble to scare you, he says. And I don't like that. Neither do I. Because for the first time since Walter was taken from me, I understand something clearly. This isn't just about the case anymore. Someone is watching, because if someone wanted to scare me into silence, they miscalculated. I've lived through worse than fear, and whatever this is, whatever's circling my family now, I'm not going to look away from it. Not anymore. That's where I'll leave it for now. Because in part 2, the pieces start moving faster. The friend group starts cracking. The patterns stop feeling coincidental. And I have to decide whether protecting my family means staying quiet or finally asking the questions nobody wants asked.